Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about the best software engineers. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, would you say that the best software engineers are self-managed and don't need anyone to manage them? Well, no, I wouldn't say so, because it depends on what you mean. What does it mean when someone manages you? I have so far never met a person who can define that for me. What is management? No one can really say, and that is why a manager's CV is always based on roles rather than accomplishments, because that's something you kind of have a hard time defining. If you sit all day putting out fires on instant messaging or talking to people and aligning and booking meetings and facilitating discussions, etc., what do you have to show for it at the end of the day? Very little, I would say. So when someone comes and asks you, what have you been doing all day? And all you can say in the stand-up is, well, I had a meeting with this person and then I wrote this document here. It doesn't sound so impressive if you compare it to what the software developers are going to be able to say, depending on what they've been doing, of course. But it's necessary. And it's probably energy draining. And well, I know it's energy draining because I've been in those sorts of have those sorts of situations where I'm actually in a day or two I'm gonna do that for an entire week. I'm going to basically just sit on my ass in tons of meetings and share my perspective and try to help a group of people navigate through like planning of work, setting up roadmaps, etc., all this sort of stuff. It takes tons and tons and tons and tons of time to do this. And there is no software developer in the world I know who's going to be able to do that and do all the coding at the same time. Because if you have such a person, then you basically have a tech lead or an architect or something like that. And not just anyone, you have someone who actually knows their shit. So the reality is that I would say that the management part, it's sort of like it depends, as I said, on what you mean, because the best software engineers, absolutely, you don't need a manager. Well, you usually don't. You don't need a manager to tell a software developer how to do their job. The good ones. You don't need them. I mean, most managers don't even know how to do that. So, which is one of those things which is very difficult for companies who hire junior software developers. If you have a manager who, I would even go as far as to say, if you're starting your own startup, or if you have like a small company or something like that, you should never have an engineering manager or like something high level fluff like that to do the management of the software developers, especially if you're hiring juniors. You are much more, you're going to be a lot more better served if you can find like a really good software developer and have them do some part of the administrative work, because you're simply not at the scale where it makes a lot of sense to have someone like a real full-fledged manager. That's something that usually makes more sense at larger scale when you have more teams, more people, etc. And so when it comes to the daily grind, then yeah, the good software engineers are going to be able to handle it themselves. But it gets to a point where these people are not going to have the time itself, which is the thing that I think is important to understand. Guys, although I don't the technical challenges or like the cognitive challenges of being a manager may not be as high as, I don't know, you inventing the next digital product or doing like the engineering work. That doesn't mean that it's not value building work, that it's not difficult, that it doesn't require a lot of energy. And the people who do this every single day, all the time, they work really, really hard. And the things that they are doing are so that you don't have to, because the work has to get done, which is the thing that the people who are anti-meetings, the quote-unquote just get it done people, what they truly don't understand is that if you just have that attitude, you're still going to fail, because you have no dialogue with whatever else is going on. The problem is usually when things get so complicated that not even the managers themselves can keep track of all the things that are going on, where they can't achieve like consensus and joint leadership and a shared vision. When they can't even do that, then nothing matters practically, because it's like a miracle if you ship anything that is useful. And I've been there many times, but when it's done correctly, the managers are very important, because they have to spend, I mean, guys, it might take you, say, a week or two to ship a feature, but planning it out and facilitating, like, to get everything in place so that you have your artboards, so that you know that they're like all the prep work has been done and the business cases have been done, like all of this sort of stuff that has to happen in order for people to sort of go, yeah, this seems to be the thing that we want to build. That is a major challenge. It's a big challenge, and the higher up that you go, the longer it takes, because you have so many people to deal with and so much internal politics and so forth and so forth. And guys, I know some of the high-end managers in some of the largest companies in the world, and I know them well enough to know what they go through. And it is not something that I would say a software engineer is. I don't care who you are, you're never going to make it happen. Because in order to do that job, you literally have to abandon being a software developer. And the question is, do you want that? And if you don't, it's probably not. It's probably just going to be a help for you to have someone to deal with all of that. That's at least how I feel about it. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. So what I want you to take away from this is that it depends on what you mean by a software engineer that can self-manage. A good software engineer doesn't need someone to hold their hand on like delivering on daily stuff and so forth. And then again, I've never really seen, it's not that common that managers have a good understanding of how to structure a work process. Because some of them have an understanding of how to ship software, but it's not a hard requirement to be in order to be a manager in engineering. Most of them, as I said, these are just people who take a lot of meetings, and they, well, as my coworker used to say, he said, I talk for a living, because he is a professional manager and he's really good at it. And that's why I want software engineers to sort of understand that, being a manager may only quote-unquote be talking and facilitating meetings and so forth, but it is a job that needs to be done. Because if it didn't need to be done, trust me, no one wants to have more meetings, more alignment, more of that stuff. Everybody wants to have less, but people cannot figure out how to do it. And so all these go-betweens, all of these conversations, they have to be facilitated in order for you to ship anything, because otherwise the software teams won't know what to do. Especially in the larger organizations, guys, it takes a fraction of the time to build the thing. Planning it is half the battle. I promise you it is. I've done it 100 times. I've even been to situations where it takes longer, which is frustrating as hell, but it takes longer to plan and agree than it takes to do the thing. It's just that if you just do the thing, people are going to be upset with you, or you're not going to be able to get the support you need, or like that integration or that other team to align. So if it's all in your own team, it's all your own bubble, you're safe, because then you own them, you control everything. As soon as you go out of that bubble, a manager becomes a very useful thing to have. And that's why I say that, well, I agree that a good engineer can probably handle their own work process, which is kind of the case usually. But when it comes to planning out work and doing all the other things that has to happen in order to ship software at scale, no. You're gonna need a manager. I can promise you that, or at least a paid intern to deal with all of the bureaucracy and all the meetings and so forth. Otherwise, you're never gonna code again. I promise you. Have a great day.